Picture this. You're at the most expensive wedding of the year. Champagne flowing, diamonds sparkling everywhere. Then the billionaire groom pulls you aside and whispers 5 words that change everything. Don't let me marry her. What would you do? Because I had 30 minutes to decide. Before we dive into this crazy story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because you're about to hear something that'll blow your mind. Trust me, you won't believe what happened next. Let me start from the beginning because none of this makes sense without context. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table, sorting through mail like any other Tuesday morning. Bills, junk mail, more bills. You know the drill. Then I saw it. This envelope that looked like it cost more than my rent. Heavy cream paper, gold embossing, my name written in the most beautiful calligraphy I'd ever seen. I opened it slowly, almost afraid to touch it. Inside was a wedding invitation, but not just any wedding invitation. This thing was practically glowing. Julian Cross and Isabella Monroe were getting married at the Rosewood estate, and somehow I was invited. The problem? I barely knew Julian Cross. Now, Julian Cross isn't just anybody. This man is worth more money than some small countries. He built his tech empire from nothing. And every magazine calls him the most eligible bachelor in America. Well, they used to anyway. Isabella Monroe is exactly what you'd expect. Old money, perfect everything. The kind of woman who probably has never had a bad hair day in her life. So, why was I holding an invitation to their wedding? I met Julian exactly once, 8 months ago, at a charity gala I was coordinating. I work in event planning and this gala was for underprivileged kids. The kind of cause that makes rich people feel good about themselves while they write tax-deductible checks. Julian was the main donor, dropping $500,000 like it was pocket change. But here's the thing, he wasn't like the other wealthy clients I'd worked with. When I introduced myself, he actually looked me in the eyes. Not through me, not over my shoulder checking for someone more important. He looked at me like I mattered. We talked for maybe 20 minutes about the charity, about the kids we were helping, about why this cause meant something to him. His mother had grown up poor. He told me she never let him forget where he came from. Then the band started playing and he did something that shocked me. He asked me to dance, not because he had to, not because it was expected, but because he wanted to. We danced to one song, talked about dreams and life and what really matters. Nothing romantic happened. He was a perfect gentleman, but there was this connection, this moment where 2 people really saw each other. After that night, nothing. No phone calls, no messages, no random encounters. I figured it was just one of those brief moments you have with someone and then life moves on. So getting this wedding invitation felt like a message from another universe. I called my best friend Tanya because I had to tell someone. Girl, you need to go. She said immediately. This is like Cinderella but in reverse. You're already invited to the ball. I laughed but part of me was curious. What would it hurt to go? Maybe I'd get some networking opportunities. Maybe I'd see how the other half really lives. So, I did something crazy. I went shopping for a dress I couldn't afford, got my hair done, and prepared to crash the wedding of the century. The morning of the wedding, I almost chickened out 3 times. What was I doing? I didn't belong in that world. But something kept pulling me forward. The Rosewood estate was like something out of a fairy tale. Rolling hills, perfectly manicured gardens, a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. Cars were pulling up, not just any cars, but the kind that cost more than most people's houses. I parked my little sedan between a Rolls-Royce and a Bentley, and tried to pretend I belonged there. Walking up to the entrance, I felt every eye on me. Not in a bad way, but in that way where everyone's trying to figure out who you are and why you're important enough to be there. The other guests were exactly what you'd expect. Designer everything, jewelry that could blind you. Conversations about private jets and vacation homes. I found my seat toward the back, which was fine by me. I could observe without being noticed. The venue was incredible. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, silk draping that probably cost more than my yearly salary. But as I watched the preparations, something felt off. The wedding party was all smiles and perfection. But when I looked closer, I could see the cracks. Isabella was barking orders at the wedding planner, her voice sharp and demanding. She smiled for the photographers, but the moment they turned away, her face went cold. The bridesmaids looked terrified of her. Even the vendors seemed on edge. Then I saw Julian. He was standing near the altar, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. He looked handsome, of course, tailored tuxedo, hair perfect, every inch the billionaire groom. But his eyes were wrong. They were empty, distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. This should have been the happiest day of his life. But he looked like he was preparing for his own funeral. When our eyes met across the room, everything changed. His face lit up with genuine relief, like he'd been drowning, and I'd thrown him a rope. He started walking toward me, and I could see Isabella's head snap in our direction. Her perfect smile never wavered, but her eyes went ice cold. "Camille," Julian said, reaching me. "I wasn't sure you'd come." His voice was warm, but there was something desperate underneath it. "I'm so glad you're here." We made small talk, but I could feel the intensity radiating from him. He kept glancing around like he was looking for an escape route. Isabella appeared at his side like a beautiful predatory bird. "Darling," she said, her voice honey, sweet, but with steel underneath. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" The way she said friend made it clear she didn't consider me worthy of the title. Julian introduced us, and Isabella's grip when she shook my hand was just a little too tight. "How lovely that you could make it," she said, but her smile never reached her eyes. "I don't believe Julian mentioned inviting you." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Julian looked uncomfortable. Isabella looked suspicious, and I felt like I'd walked into the middle of something I didn't understand. After a few more pleasantries, Isabella guided Julian away, her hand possessive on his arm. The ceremony began, and I watched from my seat as Julian walked down the aisle. He looked pale, almost sick. Isabella, on the other hand, was radiant. She floated down the aisle like she was born for this moment. Every step calculated for maximum impact. The photographers went crazy and she ate up every second of it. During the vows, Julian stumbled over his words. Isabella's were flawless, delivered with the precision of someone who'd rehearsed them 1,000 times, but there was no emotion behind them. No real love. It felt like watching a business transaction disguised as a romance. I found myself holding my breath as the officiant asked if anyone had any objections. Julian's eyes found mine in the crowd, and for a second I thought he might stop the whole thing. But the moment passed, and they were pronounced husband and wife. The crowd erupted in applause, but I felt like I was watching a tragedy unfold. The reception was even more elaborate than the ceremony. 10-course dinner, multiple bands, enough flowers to stock a florist shop. I tried to blend in, making conversation with other guests. But I kept finding myself watching Julian and Isabella. They played their parts perfectly, the happy couple, the fairy tale romance. But anyone who looked closely could see the truth. Isabella held court like a queen, accepting congratulations and compliments with practiced grace. Julian stood beside her, smiling and nodding, but his eyes kept scanning the room. When our eyes met, he would hold my gaze just a little too long, like he was trying to tell me something. After dinner, during the dancing, Julian approached me again. "Would you like to see the gardens?" he asked. "They're beautiful at night." It seemed innocent enough, but something in his tone made me think this wasn't about flowers. We walked through the French doors onto a terrace overlooking the estate's gardens. The moon was full, casting everything in silver light. It should have been romantic, but Julian looked like he was about to have a panic attack. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I know this is strange having you here, but I needed someone real here today." I was about to ask what he meant when he grabbed my arm. Not roughly, but urgently. He looked around to make sure we were alone, then leaned closer. What he whispered next changed everything. "Don't let me marry her." I stepped back, shocked. What do you mean? You just married her. Julian ran his hands through his hair, destroying his perfect styling. The ceremony was just for show. The real marriage, the legal stuff that happens tomorrow, private ceremony, just immediate family and lawyers. But Camille, I can't do it. I can't spend my life with someone who he stopped looking back toward the reception. Someone I pressed someone who doesn't love me. Someone who's only marrying me because her family will destroy my company if she doesn't. Someone who's been blackmailing me for months. The words came out in a rush like he'd been holding them back forever. I stared at him trying to process what he was saying. Julian, what are you talking about? He told me everything. How Isabella's family had dirt on his business partner. How they'd threatened to release information that would destroy both their companies and thousands of jobs. How Isabella had made it clear that marriage was the only way to keep their secret safe. How he'd been trapped for months, watching his freedom slip away piece by piece. I thought I could go through with it, he said, his voice breaking. I thought I could sacrifice my happiness for the greater good. But seeing you here tonight, remembering what it feels like to connect with someone real. I can't do it, Camille. I can't live a lie. I felt like I was in a movie, but not the good kind. The kind where everything goes wrong and you're screaming at the screen for the characters to make better choices. Julian, this is insane. You can't just run away from your wedding. I have a plane waiting at the private airfield. He said, I've been planning this for weeks. I can disappear, start over somewhere else, but I can't do it alone. I need someone I trust, someone who understands what's real and what's just for show. Why me? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Because you're the only person in my life who's never wanted anything from me except honest conversation. You're the only person who's ever looked at me and seen Julian, not Julian Cross, the billionaire. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps on the terrace. Isabella appeared, still radiant, but with steel in her eyes. There you are, darling. People are asking for the happy couple. Julian's whole body tensed. We were just getting some air. I'm sure you were. Isabella's gaze shifted to me, and I felt like I was being evaluated and found wanting. Camille, isn't it? How nice that you're enjoying the party. Julian, we should get back to our guests. It wasn't a request. Julian looked at me with desperate eyes, but he followed Isabella back toward the reception. I stayed in the garden, my mind racing. What had I gotten myself into? 20 minutes later, Julian found me again. This time, he was frantic. She knows, he said. She knows I'm planning something. She's had security watching me all night. If I'm going to do this, it has to be now. Julian, think about what you're saying. You can't just run away. What about your company, your employees, your life? What life? He asked. Camille, I'm 35 years old and I've never been truly happy. I've spent so long building this empire that I forgot to build a life. If I marry Isabella tomorrow, I'll have everything and nothing at the same time. I looked back toward the reception where Isabella was holding court, accepting congratulations and playing the perfect bride. Then I looked at Julian, this powerful man who had everything money could buy, but was trapped in a cage of his own making. What exactly are you asking me to do? I asked. Come with me. Not romantically, he added quickly. Just as a friend. Help me start over. I have resources. I can help you start your own business. Follow your dreams. We can both be free. It was crazy. It was impossible. It was the kind of thing that only happened in movies. But looking at Julian's face, seeing the hope and desperation there, I realized something. Sometimes the right choice isn't the safe choice. Sometimes you have to jump off the cliff and hope you can fly. Okay, I said. What do we need to do? Julian's relief was palpable. There's a car waiting in the service area. We need to create a distraction, something to keep Isabella and security busy while I slip away. I thought fast. Give me 5 minutes, then head for the service entrance. I walked back into the reception, my heart pounding. The band was playing, people were dancing, everything looked perfect. I found the wedding planner and told her there was an emergency with the cake table. While she rushed off to investigate the non-existent problem, I accidentally bumped into a waiter carrying a tray of champagne. The crash was spectacular. Glass everywhere. Champagne soaking into expensive dresses. Chaos erupting across the reception. In the confusion, I slipped away toward the service area. Julian was already there, having changed into dark clothes. "This is it," he said. "Last chance to change your mind." I thought about my safe, predictable life, my small apartment, my steady job, my careful plans. Then I thought about Julian, trapped in a golden cage, and I thought about myself, maybe trapped in a smaller cage of my own making. "Let's go," I said. We ran to the car, adrenaline pumping through my veins. As we drove away from the estate, I could see lights flashing behind us. Security, probably. But we were already gone, disappearing into the night like ghosts. The drive to the airfield was surreal. Julian kept thanking me, but I wasn't sure what I'd actually done. Had I helped someone escape an impossible situation? Or had I just participated in the most expensive runaway bride scenario in history? At the airfield, Julian's private jet was waiting, fueled and ready. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere we can figure out what comes next," he said. "Somewhere we can be ourselves." As we climbed aboard the plane, I realized I was leaving behind everything I'd ever known. My job, my apartment, my carefully planned life. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. The plane lifted off into the night sky, and I watched the lights of the city disappear below us. Julian sat across from me, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him all day. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I know I asked you to give up everything, and I know I don't deserve it. Maybe we both deserved a chance to choose our own lives," I replied. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a cafe in a small coastal town writing this story. Julian and I started a foundation together, helping people escape impossible situations. We're friends. Real friends. The kind who saw each other clearly in a moment of crisis and decided to jump together. Did we do the right thing? I don't know. All I know is that sometimes life gives you a choice between safety and authenticity, between what's expected and what's real. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone comes along who's willing to jump into the unknown with you. Isabella, she's fine. The scandal lasted about a week before she found another billionaire to marry. Turns out she's very good at adapting to new situations. And Julian's company, it survived without the merger, stronger than ever because it's being run by someone who's finally free to be himself. So, what do you think? Would you have helped him escape? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more wild stories like this, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. Trust me, my life is never boring.